When Britain first at heaven's command arose from out the azure main, arose from azure main. This was the charter of the land, and guardian angels. When I was a child, they told me Britannia rules the waves. The sun never sets on the British Empire. From the west to the east, from the north to the south, the domains of Britannia and its empire stretched from sea to sea, pole to pole, and Britannia was the strongest. Now, I am sure that there are many of you in this room today who were not under British rule. Some of you might have been under the decadent French. Others would have seen the horrors of what King Leopold did in the Congo. Still others might have been part of the German, Portuguese, or French possessions. Some might be part of the Dutch possessions. Or still others could have been part of Australian possessions. But there is one thing that is common among all of us today in this room, my friends. We were once part of someone's possession. They owned us. We were their subjects, their dogs to be fed scraps and ordered around. No more, my friends, no more. For this is, and we are no longer subjects. We are free, my friends, free to choose our own destinies. Now I admit that some of the circumstances of how this came to be are very sad, tragic even. But what matters most, my friends, today is that we are free. And we must remain so. For if we align ourselves with any of the two worlds, then we shall end up losing our freedom once more and becoming mere puppet states of Washington, D.C. or Germania. For the world today, my friends, is divided up between two distinct blocks of power. The first block is what I might call the old world, the world of Britannia, the world of the Americans, the ones who held power before us, and in most cases, the ones who held power over us. The Americans and their massive military-industrial complex continues to dominate the part of the world which they call quote-unquote free. But how can a world that is under one or the other power be free, my friends? No, it cannot. So let us have a brief tour of what this world is and what it entails. For it's a new year, 1965. In Germania sits the Black Guards of the SS under Hans Lammers. When the German Civil War began, nobody had expected that the fanatical SS could win, for the Wehrmacht had the most military power, and Hermann Göring's men controlled the Luftwaffe. How then did the SS win? The SS won because they were as dedicated to oppressing peoples as we are to freedom, my friends. Ideological fanaticism, suicidal attacks, subversion tactics, and many other things that I might not say at this great conference here today. Just a few years after they had recovered from the horrors of their own civil war, the Germans immediately restored their authority over their Reichskommissariats, but the SS had different ideas. After removing Himmler from power, Hans Lammers restored the NSDAP and restored much of the old Nazi constitution, but not when it came to the Reichskommissariats. No, in that he was a strict SS officer. Instead, SS Ordensstaats were established in Ostland, Ukraine, Moscow, and in the Caucasus. Now, what is the difference between a Reichskommissariat and an SS Ordensstaat? The difference is simply ideological fanaticism. For the SS want to build a pure Aryan utopia in the East, but they don't want to move as slowly as Hitler's Generalplan Ost had declared. They are going to have a more radical part of Generalplan Ost, with results in 20 years' time. And I don't have to spell out here to this conference what that means. But the greater tragedy was how the Soviet Union fell so quickly to the German onslaught in 1958 to 1960. During World War II, we all thought the Germans would not be able to defeat the Soviet winter. We were wrong. In 1958, we thought they wouldn't be able to go to Siberia, surely. Well, they did. German tanks braved all the petroleum problems, the ugly roads, and the Russian winter, and went all the way to Norilsk. And that is where the frontier stands today, the German Wild West. Now, I admit that in some parts like Ordensstaat Ural, the Ural Germans have some degree of autonomy, but not much, and it doesn't even matter. In other parts of their empire, the Germans have established SS Ordensstaat Danemark. But in Norwegian is the most horrific of the SS Ordensstaats. Even though Norwegian is an SS Ordensstaat, Jonas Lai did not come to power with German arms. Instead, he led a coup d'etat against Vidkun Quisling. Jonas Lai's vision for an Aryan utopia is extreme. He wants to turn Norway into a pure land of the Aryans. Christianity has been completely banned, and many urban parts are being deconstructed to make way for Aryan farms, to feed the Reich and to feed the greater German Empire. Then the Germans have SS Ordensstaat Banat, where Sepp Janko is running what can be described as a bandit state. They indiscriminately loot, rape, and destroy property belonging to ethnic Serbs and Romanians. But since the Serbian nation-state has ceased to exist after Tito's failed attempt at establishing a communist utopia in the 50s, the Germans have occupied it, and there is no one left to oppose Sepp Janko anymore. But now let's get to the rest of Europe, shall we? In Portugal, Salazar's despotic rule was removed in a violent coup in 1959, where Humberto Delgado took over power. He immediately issued free elections and won the election himself, and for that we revere him. For after winning the elections, Humberto Delgado did promise to decolonize. But as my friends in Angola and Mozambique sitting in this room here today will point out, Humberto Delgado's promises turned out to be empty, and hence he is no longer our friend. Spain. I remember that Spain was a weak state then, and it is a weak state now. But it is now under Francisco Franco, and it shall remain so, for Franco is the eternal personalist dictator. And Franco also rules over a colonial empire spanning Morocco and Equatorial Guinea. And hence, he is also the enemy of the free world. The Italian Empire, the so-called Rome. But look how it is today. The Italians have been battered. While they still hold Libya and Tunisia, they have lost control over much of their old empire. In Bosnia, the Italians managed to defeat Tito and established a puppet state. Although nominally under Hungary, it is clear that Bosnia is a sort of nation where the Italian and Hungarian sphere of influence coincides under Mehmed Hanzik. But elsewhere, the Italians faced defeat after defeat after defeat. In Montenegro, the Italians had to give up some power to Queen Marija I. But it is in Greece and Albania that the Italians were entirely routed. But first, let us take a look at the other Balkan states. the Slovak Republic. After the rebellion of Sebjanko, the Germans restored order and Joseph Tiso was once again restored. Tiso's vision is a kind of clerical fascism mixed with National Socialism. One can call it Catholic National Socialism. Elsewhere, the Hungarians managed to defeat the Romanians in the Third Romanian-Hungarian War, and they managed to reclaim some of their territories in Transylvania. After the victory, Horthy family's power was completely and firmly stuck to the ground. The Horthys planted their tree in Budapest and it shall grow forever. István Horthy became the supreme leader of Hungary after his father Miklos Horthy's death. He called King Filiberto, a duke from northern Italy, and installed him as his puppet king of Hungary. But it is clear that István Horthy still holds all the power under his Hungarian Life Party. But in Romania, the consequences of defeat were not good. For King Michael and the normal regime since World War II faced massive protests, and the radical Iron Guard under Horia Sima rose up in rebellion. In the ensuing civil war, the SS gave help to the Iron Guard, and the Iron Guard secured their victory in Romania. King Michael had to flee the country to the United States of America. Now the Iron Guard have set up a radical reactionary state. Some claim that the Iron Guard are true socialists, for they have done a lot of land reforms. But do you know who has got this land? Not the peasants, only those loyal to the Iron Guard. And the Iron Guard have completely eroded what little liberty had been seen under Antonescu and the monarchy. Now the Iron Guard is a radical state akin to Nazi Germany. But there are states even worse than that in the Balkans, states which would bring the Iron Guard to shame. What happens when two horror states start fighting against each other? What happens when two hells collide? That can be seen between the reorganized Hellenic state and the state of Bulgaria, fighting eternally over Eastern Thrace. The reorganized Hellenic state is led by Nikolaos Baurantas. Baurantas is a monster of a man, even by the standards of his monstrous compatriots. Baurantas wants to cleanse Greece. Some call him the Hitler of Greece, and they aren't wrong. For not only has Baurantas set up a system of oppression akin to Nazi Germany, not only have his men chipped away at the Parthenon a swastika, but same to Hitler, they fought quite bravely against Italy, and they defeated the sick man of Italy. The shocked Italians were forced out of Corfu, they were forced out of Greece, and they were forced out of Albania. Now it is true that the SS did help Baurantas fight against Nazi Germany's old World War II ally. But it can be said that Baurantas also led his radical soldiers in such a way that they were able to sweep off the Italians off the southern Balkans. In Albania, the Albanians paid for Baurantas' help in giving them independence from Italy with everything else they had. For Baurantas established the Kingdom of Albania. No king has been crowned yet, but ask any Albanian today, was life better under fascist Italy, and they shall say yes. Because my friends, the killing, the raping, the looting of Jews, minorities, and anyone else that stands in their way, that is the grim reality of Baurantas' empire. But there is another horror, the one in Sofia, under Alexander Belev. Coming to power after the death of Risto Lukov, Alexander Belev established what can be called as one large prison camp, a smaller Nazi Germany. They used to call Bulgaria the Prussia of the Balkans. Well, today we can call Bulgaria the Nazi Germany of the Balkans. Alexander Belev is a weird man. Bulgarians are not Nordics, but Belev believes in Bulgarian Aryan supremacy. He believes that the old Bulgar state of Central Asia was Aryans, and in the middle centuries and millenniums, the Bulgars lost their Aryanism by mixing with Slavs. Belev wants to change that. He wants to clean Bulgaria, and he wants to clean them of everyone he thinks has reduced the Aryanism of the Bulgarian blood. And this is the sad state of Europe. But oh, I almost forgot. The French state. After Pétain, Charles Noguès came to power. Noguès' ideology can be described as turning back the clock on everything that France has achieved. Noguès is not a fascist as they call him. Sure, he's quite friendly with the Germans. But Noguès is a conservative. He has started natalist policies in France. Childbirth is associated with well-being. Large conservative families are rewarded. Noguès and his men feel that in the 19th century, France's obsession with cultural modernity and socialism brought down France. He wants to change that. He wants to ring back the clock and make France great as it was by going completely conservative. I shall explain Britain when I explain the free world. The so-called free world, that is, led by the United States of America. Adlai Stevenson has been president 2 times in a row now. But in the next election, who knows whether his Democrats will be able to hold on to power. For a new stalwart Republican has come to the forefront, Richard Nixon. And Nixon has promised to Republican voters that next time victory shall be his. And then we have Britannia, the ones who ruled over the world. And what a sad state they have come to. The monarchy is no longer respected, and Queen Elizabeth is now a mere doll, a doll to be kept in a pretty little dollhouse. For under John Freeman and the Democratic Socialist left of the Labour Party, the monarchy is but a remnant of the old world. The only reason Freeman hasn't kicked out the royal family yet is because he is loyal to the present circumstances of Britain. Freeman has nationalized a lot of British industries. He has started a brand new housing scheme to give affordable housing to most of the poor. Now, we don't hold grudges against British people. What Freeman is doing is actually very admirable. But even more than that, Freeman's greatest achievement was the slow decolonization of the British Empire. Under Freeman, Britannia gave independence to various countries of the world whose delegates are present in this room today. And for that, we applaud Freeman. In Ireland, there is a market liberal government. In Iceland, also there is a liberal government. And then we come to Canada. In the 1950s, M.J. Caldwell's CCF, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, won the Canadian elections. And M.J. Caldwell immediately set forward with his bold plan of throwing off the yoke of the British monarchy and making Canada a free republic. This endeavor was supported by the Americans to a degree. But there was an attempted monarchist coup which was immediately crushed, and this increased the popularity of M.J. Caldwell even more. He also granted independence to Quebec, which is today ruled by real Kuwait. Caldwell will probably not stand for the next election, and it is doubtful if the CCF will win the next election. But even if the opposition comes to power, Canada is free and it shall remain so. The rest of the second world is Japan. After the 4 nuclear weapons decimated Japan, the Americans established their puppet state. But then in the 50s, as cries of independence grew louder, the Americans gave independence to Japan on one condition: the Japanese waived their right to wage war ever again. Today, Yoshida Shigeru and his conservative Gyuto party leads Japan. Then there is Korea. After the fall of Syngman Rhee's Illuminist dictatorship, there was a short revolution, as a bunch of leftist and democratic revolutionaries seized power in Seoul. But the Americans preferred the Democrats to the leftists, and so they switched support from Rhee's government to the revolutionaries and to the Democrats. Today, Korea is a free democracy under Kim Seung-sol. And then there's Australia under Robert Menzies and New Zealand under Sydney Holland. But now we shall come to the free world. They call us the third world. They insult us, my friends, but non-alignment is something that we take seriously. If one searches for a father of the free world, then it can be none other than Subhash Bose. Coming to power after leading a popular revolution against British rule, with the help of remnants of the USSR, Subhash Chandra Bose established his Republic of India and defeated all the princes and warlords that had risen up in the south. Subhash Bose is an inspiration for the free world. But Bose is not without his flaws, of course. Many think that Bose's support for Nazi Germany during World War II is problematic. But nevertheless, Bose is a part of the free world, even though the arch-enemy of India, Pakistan, sides with the United States of America under Abdul Qayyum Khan. If you look for the second leader of the free world, then we have the Arab Federal Republics. Pan-Arabism is a simple ideology, a nation for all the Arab peoples, a nation where the common Arab man and woman can live together in harmony. Now the Pan-Arab dream stretches from Morocco to the borders of Ethiopia and Sudan. But the Arab Republic of today is no less glorious. It all began with a revolution in Baghdad, where Fuad al-Rikabi and his Baath party seized power after removing the decadent Hashemite monarchy. They merged with the Egyptian Arab Republic under Mohammad Naguib. Naguib did not want to merge with the Iraqi Baath party, but he was cooed by Gamal Abdel Nasser. Nasser foresaw the union of Iraq and Egypt. But Anton Sadeh's SSNP Syria was one big roadblock in the road to Arab independence. Sadeh was defeated in the war. And as Arab forces near Damascus, the Syrian part of the Baath party rebelled and removed Sadeh from power. That is how Syria joined with Egypt and Iraq. And then the rest is history. The Saudi family was brutally removed from power after the Arab-Saudi war. The Western world secretly pitted their powers against the Arab Republic to help the Saudis. Now it is true that the Arab Republic had to fight the Western powers with help from certain sources. But that doesn't mean that the Arab Federal Republic is a puppet state of Nazi Germany. No. For the Arab state did fight the imperial state of Iran, another Western puppet on their own. Meanwhile, the Sultanate of Oman and the Kingdom of Yemen continue to be more Western puppets. While the King of Afghanistan, Amanullah Khan, is a puppet of Germania, for he was placed in power after World War II by German agents in Kabul, after removing the other dynasty from Afghanistan. So is the Tajik national state under Tuchi Nazarov. And then we come to China. After Chiang Kai-shek's failure in Vietnam, he was removed from power and placed under house arrest by General He Yingping of the Wang Pu clique. General He Yingping has turned China into a hardline military dictatorship. The Chinese refuse to join the third world, the free world, and they have isolated themselves from all three worlds. Now a new kind of Cold War has started between China and the Americans in the Pacific. The Chinese also have certain friendly relations with the Germans, but none that they shall confess in public. General He Yingping has set up a kind of technocratic military dictatorship. In China, the people don't have freedom, but the people are well fed. So there is one element of it that we can learn from the Chinese. In Southeast Asia, the popular word is socialism. For the Union of Burma, the Lao People's Republic, Democratic Kampuchea under Tau Samothan is communists, and lastly the victorious Socialist Republic of Vietnam under Ho Chi Minh. These have also joined us today in the non-aligned world, and their socialism has brought the Red Revolution to Southeast Asia. They are opposed by reactionary forces in Thailand, where Paleg's dictatorship continues. The man who was once a fascist sympathizer effortlessly joined with the Americans just so they could keep a tab on the Southeast Asian communists. Then another reactionary force is Tunku Abdul Rahman's Malay ethno-state in Malaysia. After defeating the liberal Own Jafar, Tunku Abdul Rahman established an ethnic state where only Malays have rights and everyone else hasn't. People like the Tamils, the Thais, and the Chinese minority do not have as much rights as the Malays. The Philippines, meanwhile, prefers to have one foot in the non-aligned movement and the other in the American sphere. They are led by the market liberal Elpidio Quirino. Meanwhile, the colonialists of the Kingdom of Denmark and Australia still continue to hold strength over Papua New Guinea. But they shall soon have their freedom, my friends. It is so ironic that the Dutch cry for their own freedom from German dependence, but they continue to establish their colonial hardship upon other people. I would like to say to the Dutch present here, you shall reap what you sow. The rest of the free world is the West African Federation under Gerard Kango Odira, who got his independence from French rule. Once again, the so-called free French, who want freedom from the French government controlled by the Germans, but they continue to oppress the people of Africa. Well, no more. Now the West African Federation has got its independence, along with Mauritania. Meanwhile, the peaceful decolonization, thanks to John Freeman and his Labour Party, has led to the independence of nations like Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, the Nile Republic, Sudan, Uganda, the Republic of Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, and the Zambian Socialist Republic under Kenneth Kaunda, and Madagascar. And all these gentlemen are present today with us in this glorious non-aligned conference. We shall not join any world. We shall not join any overlord. We shall only be our own men, free to choose our own destiny. But wait, there are some more outliers. Among these outliers are Liberia, who are somewhat friendly to the first world of the Americans and somewhat not friendly to them. Then we have the Union of South Africa, where Jan Hendrik Humphrey has continued to stay loyal to the monarchy, even though Britannia itself is no longer as loyal to the monarchy as it was before. And then there is Israel. The State of Israel and the State of Palestine were established after the Jerusalem Conference, after the end of World War II, by the British and with diplomacy with the Italians. Thanks to many of the constitution which unites Israel and Palestine under the confederal districts, the Palestinians cannot join the United Arab Republic, even though there are calls for them to join. The problem is that if the Palestinians join the Arab Federal Republics, then there will be complication regarding who owns Jerusalem. The Israelis do not want to have diplomatic accidents with the massive United Arab Republic or the question of Jerusalem, and hence in Palestine, the traditionalist government of Fakhri Nashibi continues. Then there's Lebanon, which is under Fuad Chehab. Chehabism is an ideology sponsored by Fuad Chehab. The ideology is simple: reform in Lebanon and cooperation between the Arabs and the Maronite Christians. Then we have the Republic of Turkey, where Ismet Inonu, the vice president of Kemal Pasha, continues to be in power. If we assume that Kemal Pasha's final take of glory was in 1923, when he united Turkey, then it can be said that for the past 43 years or 42 years, Kemalism has governed Turkey continuously. And though the Kemalists continue to win elections, it is doubtful how free they are. The Republic of Turkey is friendly with the First World. Then we have the Republic of Cyprus. In Cyprus in the 1950s, there was much tension between Greeks and Turks. But the coming of the AKEL, Marxist-Leninist government to power, fostered more cooperation, and the Cypriot Federation now gives equal rights to Turks and to Greeks and Turks on their two halves of the islands. The fascist and Nazi Greek sympathizers, who are secretly being funded by Nikolaos Baurantas and his hellish reorganized Hellenic state, have been suppressed. Cyprus is now free. But what remains of Russia is the most tragic, for Russia is not dead yet. Under Petrim Sorokin, the Russian glory continues in the Far East, with its capital at the port city of Vladivostok. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Petrim Sorokin signed a ceasefire agreement wherein the present borders would be maintained. It is unknown how long the Germans will respect these borders. But they have to, for if the Germans attack the Russian Republic, then they will have to face potential American nuclear attacks. Petrim Sorokin was once a social revolutionary. In those old days, he sided with Alexander Kerensky. He fought against the Bolsheviks, and after losing, he went off to America. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Petrim Sorokin joined hands at Vladivostok with some right-wing and liberal Democrats, and together the Russian Republic was proclaimed. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the Russian Republic remains the sole ruler of Russia. Then we have Latin America. Mexico continues to be a pre-dictatorship, and in Central America, we have a bunch of despotic military dictatorships. In Cuba, an American-sponsored CIA coup failed, and Carlos Prios Ocaras continues to rule Cuba. In the Dominican Republic, again the CIA coup failed to remove Rafael Trujillo from power. Now Trujillo is on his deathbed, and his son Ramfis Trujillo is said to have even more despotic intentions. The future for the Dominican Republic looks black. Haiti is a reactionary nationalist dictatorship. Now we come to South America. In the Republic of Venezuela, General Perez Jimenez has ruled since 1952. He is friendly with the Americans, and he has subsidized oil, leading to a slew of money in Venezuela. And when the people are rich, they do not bother protesting against the government. And that is the backbone of Perez Jimenez's popularity. But mark my words, friends, one day the money shall run out, and then it shall be hard for Perez Jimenez to stay on in power. In Colombia, there is democracy. Laureano Gomez has won the recent elections. Democracy also finds itself in Ecuador and in the Bolivarian Republic and in Chile. But elsewhere, there are dictatorships, violent dictatorships. In Peru, Eloy Gaspar Ureta has established a strict right-wing dictatorship. In the Argentine Republic, Benjamin Mendez seized power in a coup in 1956. In Uruguay, Alberto de Micheli has established what can be said as an authoritarian democracy. The Colorados, once a party of democracy, has now been turned into a despotic party. In the state of Paraguay and Brazil, however, we see a different kind of despotism, one more directly friendly with the second world. the world behind the black curtain of Nazi Germany. For General Gauss Monteiro supports the Nazis. He supplies them petroleum. He supplies them rubber. Brazil is friendly to the Germans, and it is the German SS that helps Gauss Monteiros to crush his enemies and to fight off attempts of the CIA to remove him from power. The state of Paraguay under Alfredo Stroessner is also similar. He is also friendly to Nazi Germany. Stroessner and Monteiro are two of the biggest thorn in the Americans, for they are sitting in America's backyard and they hate the Americans. The future in South America will be an interesting one where the forces of liberty in northern South America face off against the forces of despotism in southern South America and the forces of Nazi-funded despotism in Brazil and Paraguay. In Europe, the Greater German Reich remains stable for now, but it is doubtful how long it shall stay so. And in the so-called free world, the United States, the United Nations, and the Toronto Accord is itself not as united as it was before. For John Freeman's democratic socialism is as different from the Americans' market liberal military industrial complex as it is from Nazi Germany's National Socialism. But one thing is certain, my friends, the free world shall remain free. Not now, but forever. Today's last speech. My today's last address goes out. Freedom for Ethiopia and Somalia, my friends. The weak Italians can be easily removed if the third world unites. We shall crush them. Freedom for Addis Ababa. We stand with Emperor Haile Selassie. He has even promised to restore democracy in Ethiopia. The Italians shall be removed. And with this, I declare the Non-Alignment Movement Conference closed. Everyone, please stand up. Salute.